Mid-Maryland Votes is a place for ideas, not insults. On this episode, we sit down with Mason Carter, Frederick County Council member for District 5 and the youngest councilman in Frederick County and the state of Maryland. We talk about stepping into leadership at a young age, representing a growing district, and how a new generation is approaching local government and community priorities. Now let's get into it.
Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I am your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we have a very distinguished visitor with us tonight. We have Mason Carter of the Frederick County Council. Mason, thank you and welcome to the program.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak to you guys.
Would you mind just explaining to our viewers what position you hold with the county of the Frederick County?
Yeah, absolutely. In 2022, I was elected to the Frederick County Council, and I represent District 5, which is northern Frederick County. Pretty much, if you just draw a line through the middle of the county, I have the northern part. So from Walkersville up to the state line, and then from Myersville all the way over to Union Bridge.
Now, Mason, you appear to be a very young man. So were you, in fact, the youngest member of the county council ever elected?
That's correct. I was elected at 18 years old back in 2022 to become the youngest elected in Frederick County's history and the second youngest in the state history.
We applaud you 100%, Mason, because
you.
Young people are more and more disenfranchised and unplugging from the political network. And whether you're Republican or Democrat, you coming on and serving in this role and serving your community is laudable, and we thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think that we've certainly seen that the tide turn in terms of young people getting involved in politics. I know that you've covered an individual running for the county council is also young. There's a number of other individuals that are running not only in the state of Maryland, but right here in Frederick County that are younger than the typical candidate, people with some color left in their hair.
Why? What do you attribute that to? What do you attribute these young people getting back involved? Because for a long time they were disenfranchised and frankly unplugged.
Yeah, I think probably some of that comes back to politics becoming mainstream and politics being everywhere you look. Most notably, probably on social media platforms such as TikTok and Instagram, where the demographic turns and trends a little younger. And so I think people are being exposed to politics at a younger age now, and they're looking to get involved just like I did.
How is social media becoming a political forum for young individuals?
I think that people now more than ever are becoming more and more vocal about how they think about certain things. I challenge anybody to go on, after listening to this podcast, obviously, to go on to Facebook and scroll for 10 to 15 seconds, and I guarantee you that at least one or two of those posts are going to be in some way, shape, or form associated with politics or with government. And typically the problem now is that those views that we're seeing are skewing from the very left and the very right, and the people in the middle are becoming disenfranchised. And I believe that now represents an opportunity for those who are center left, center right, and right down the middle to come together, to get involved, and to show the people that what you see online is not exactly what every single person thinks.
You know, you bring up a great point, Mason, and the fact is that that's the very reason why Mid-Maryland Votes exists. We like to have conversations, civil conversations with people of different backgrounds, different viewpoints, and that is sorely missing on social media.
Absolutely. And I must say, this is a great time to plug the 6 other individuals that I serve with. I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky to serve with some very good people. Maybe not great politicians. They don't have great policy that they're pushing, but they're good people. They'll listen, and we can be constructive with each other. And so I've been very lucky to be able to serve with them.
How would you describe that? It's good that you guys have a good rapport, but what is the different philosophies that are competing on the county council currently?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, there are 7 members, 2 elected at large and 5 by a district. We have 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And, obviously we have a Democrat supermajority with the Democrat county executive. And so if they really wanted to, they could completely govern without regard for myself or Steve McKay. And I think we're very lucky that, well, maybe they don't agree with us many times or most times, they're willing to sit down and listen to us and have some constructive conversations, and we make headway on certain things because of that. And so we're very appreciative.
So, what is the breakdown of Frederick County politically? I mean, what percentage is Republican? What percentage is Democrat and Independent?
I believe that the last breakdown, there's about 10% more Democrats than Republicans, and about 25 to 30% of those are independents. And so while it is skewing to become a Democrat or a blue county, the middle ground, your independents, hold a lot of weight in determining who these county-wide candidates are elected. So I mean, it is very, very, very possible that even though, again, the Democrats have a 10% lead over Republican registrations, that a Republican could win the county executive race. And we saw a very, 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 very close county executive race back in 2022 when Michael Huff only lost by 970-ish votes to our now county executive Fitzwater. Very close election, and I'm hoping that we can come out on the right side this time.
And when you describe the county council and how the five members who are Democrats do listen and do engage with the two members that are Republicans, there is another county-wide body that exists in Frederick County and every county in the state. It's the Board of Education, the County Board of Education. That kind of has a similar breakdown where it is primarily Democrat. However, the dynamics there are very different. The complaint is very strong that the liberal board members don't pay any attention to what the conservative board members have to say. There is no rapport or back and forth. Do you have an idea as to why there is such a difference between how you portray it on your end and how this other countywide position is oftentimes portrayed?
I can't speak to specifics as I don't work with the members of the Board of Education as closely as I do with my colleagues. I've had some conversations here and there with the conservative members of the Board of Education. I've had a number of conversations with the liberal members of the Board of Education. I don't know if it's because they seem to take on some more of the controversial issues that the council typically doesn't, and maybe that brings out some more of their social beliefs. I could certainly see that as being one of the reasons, but again, I don't work with them too often, so I can't speak to specifics.
Now, one of the issues that you guys do deal with to some extent, I believe, or at least could have an impact, that is all over the news in the state now, is the 287G program, which is the law enforcement's ability to work with ICE. Now, the delegates and the state senators in Annapolis made it illegal, I believe. And right after they did that, the sheriffs throughout Maryland, including in Washington County or Frederick County, came out and said they are going to continue to work with ICE anyway. How does this impact what you're going to do or the citizens of Frederick County?
I was very disappointed to see that result, but I wasn't surprised, unfortunately. While the county council has no direct authority over the sheriff's office, we certainly don't have any authority over contracts and negotiations between the sheriff's office and federal law enforcement agencies. It is deeply concerning for me specifically to see the state step in and trample on local control. We can fight all day long about whether or not the 287G program is good or bad, which I think does very good things for us. But at the end of the day, there has been an attack on local control by this state over the past few years, and especially in this session. And this is just one example of that. I think that community policing is super important because it's the people that are here in the county that know the people that are here in the county. There is a familiarity with each other that helps us to enforce laws better, to rehabilitate individuals better. These officers that are out on our streets every single day, they're taking their kids to the same school that our kids go to. They're shopping at the same grocery stores. They're driving on the same roads. And so I think it is certainly a bad idea to stopping the enforcement of laws from being a local issue. And that's really what this does. I feel as though the Democrats in Annapolis have conflated 287G with what everybody is seeing on TV with these different ICE raids that they're seeing in different parts of the country. That's not happening here for a reason. We haven't seen what was happening in Minneapolis in Maryland, certainly not in Frederick County, for a reason. It's because we have local law enforcement doing the job of federal law enforcement agencies here. And you better believe that now, because they're going to terminate that agreement, that you're going to have federal law enforcement agents in Frederick County doing the job that now they're not letting Frederick County do.
You're absolutely right. We've had Sheriff Chuck Jenkins on several times, and he explained the 287G program and the value of it to the Frederick County citizens. It's probably appropriate for us to give a refresher to our viewers, and the fact that the 287G program has 3 different models. One is a very active in the streets kind of model. The most basic model is the jailhouse model, which is what what Sheriff Chuck Jenkins and his people implement here in Frederick County. So if somebody is convicted or has been charged with a crime, already a crime, not an immigration law crime, but a real crime, rape, murder, arson, that kind of stuff, that when they're booked into the central booking facility for Frederick County, there is a detainer check made. And at that time, their citizenship is established. And if they are, in fact, have a detainer from ICE, then ICE is contacted. That is the model that's used predominantly around the entire state and when the sheriffs do participate. In fact, the reason that ICE is not active in Frederick County is they don't have a need to be. That the suspension of the 287G program actually endangers the immigrant community more than at any other time, because the vast majority of immigrants, whether they're legal or not, are not committing crimes. They will not be going to jail, and they certainly won't be, entering into ICE territory. However, if ICE does have to go into the communities to make a raid, they're going to sweep up anybody who's undocumented at that time. So these virtue signaling Democratic politicians in Annapolis are really putting the constituents and the illegal immigrants in jeopardy.
I guess I have to remind some people that this is an election year, and so I'm sure they're trying to do some certain things to make their palm cards and their mailers look that much more appealing to their Democrat primary voters. However, I think that people are going to find out real soon that this is a huge mistake, and it goes totally against all the goals that they really have.
When Sheriff Jenkins was on talking about the things that Mark just mentioned, he essentially predicted, for all intents and purposes, that what is happening in Minneapolis was going to happen somewhere, and that the 287G program is what is essentially preventing that possibility from occurring here in Maryland. Of course, Sheriff Jenkins is locally elected. And as you mentioned, there is this assault on local control and local power. How would you describe the difference in the way decisions and the quality of decisions are that you're seeing being made at the local level versus at the state level?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, your local county government, your local town government that's now being preempted by the state is much closer to the people than they are. These blanket statewide policies rarely do what they're supposed to do because Maryland is so diverse. What goes on in PG County is a lot different than what goes on in Garrett County and Allegheny County. Different places, different economies, different people, way of life. And when you try to do some blanket statewide policy, there are a lot of unintended consequences with that. It's because of the differences and the diversity of the state of Maryland.
I mean, Sheriff Jenkins and these local sheriffs were elected to their position by constituents who wanted them to continue the policies that keep them safe. For Annapolis to try to override that is overreach, in my opinion. And unfortunately, it's something that this administration has done time and time again.
And it speaks to the foundation of our country. There's a separation of powers for a reason. We don't want one branch of government, one level of government to get too powerful. And I think that we're really starting to get into that conversation now with the state of Maryland.
And one of the examples, I think, that really illustrates what you're referring to is one is the PGM or PJM Piedmont Reliability Project line that is going through several Howard County, Carroll County, Frederick County, which is essentially a very large extension cord being draped across Maryland from Pennsylvania to Virginia to power Virginia data centers. And eminent domain is being used. So essentially farmers, farmland, other property of citizens is just being taken from them at the state's discretion to put this this power line across the counties. Now, that way of decision making obviously is just coming from the state level. You just described what is going on with the data center, and how did you guys come to kind of the conclusions that you came to?
Absolutely. And so recently, the county council voted in favor of to establish an overlay, which would be something that lays over top of all the zoning, and then creates a physical boundary, or an imaginary boundary, excuse me, over a set piece of property or properties, where now only a certain amount or a certain level of development can be placed under it. And so we passed a CDI, data center overlay zone, over the southern part of the county close to Adamstown, with the bulk majority of that being the old East Alcoa campus, the aluminum smelting plant campus.
Yes.
And I mean, the whole reason why the data center industry is focused in on that piece of property is because there's already a great level of electrical infrastructure at the site. There wouldn't need to be the development of much new, because the East Alcoa aluminum smelting plant was already such a big drag on our power grid, and they use a lot of different electrical infrastructure. As for what we're doing to make sure that we don't have the same problems as Virginia had and is having, is we're putting hard acreage caps on how big this overlay can grow, how many data centers can be in our county, from design criteria to reporting. We have made data centers the most heavily regulated industry in the county. And that's for a good reason. I mean, this is a very unique and complex situation, a very unique and complex industry. And we need to ensure that we don't make the same mistakes that we saw from our southern neighbors. They've really got themselves in a bind. They're having to import power from states away and cutting through our state to deliver that power to them. And we don't want to see that here. We don't want to see that here. And that's why we put these safeguards in place. Let's make it very clear that at the time of approval, if a proposed data center doesn't have the water it needs, the electricity it needs, it's not going to get approved. We have these safeguards in place to ensure, again, that we don't make the same mistakes as Virginia has.
And one thing I'd like to emphasize is just what you just described right here. Is you described a group of individuals getting together and talking about what is happening hyper locally to the how many residents of Frederick County are there approximately?
We just went over 300,000.
Wow. So of the 300,000 residents, you discussed all the geographies, all of the issues, because like you said, it's not just the police officers, it's you yourselves who are riding on these roads and shopping in these establishments. And you made a decision that as a group you felt best represented for both the benefits and the consequences of what is best for Frederick County. Whereas when you look at that Piedmont Reliability Project extension cord, it is simply the state saying, and we're going to take your property, and then we're going to take your property, and then we're going to take your property. The difference between how one project affects the quality of life of Marylanders and how the data center project is going to, as a result of the decision making, is going to affect the quality of life of Frederick County residents, dramatically different. And I think it's just a great example of the difference between state control and local control.
And absolutely. And Ethan, on your point with that, the decision makers with in regards to the MPRP and their certificate of public convenience and necessity, that decision lays in the hands of unelected people. And so there's no way for those individuals to be held accountable for the decision they're making, which is in stark contrast, again, to what's happening on our local level. I mean, there's a lot of people who are upset with our decision on data centers, and they have the recourse at their disposal to vote for individuals or vote against individuals that may have made a decision that they didn't like. And that's one of the very foundations of our democracy. And I can't tell them enough to go out and vote, whether you're voting for me or against me, for any certain reason. It's just important that people get out, get involved, and vote.
So, Mason, you did mention the fact that this is an election year and people are coming up for their elections. How about yourself? What are your goals? Are you going to be running for re-election, and have you declared? Have you signed up, so to speak?
Yeah, so I thought about it for a long time. I spoke with a lot of my close friends, my families, and my close advisors, and we decided that we're going to run one more time. And I always like to point this out, but one more time for sure. Everybody always tells me that, hey, I've heard politicians before tell me one more time, and they're still serving for 20 more years now. But this really is my last time for the county council. I've had a great deal of fun. I've met a lot of great people. I think we've done a lot of good work. And so back a few months ago, I believe back in October it was, I went and filed for re-election with the Frederick County Board of Elections. We've been running a very good race so far. The feedback's been great, and I'm looking forward to riding that momentum into November.
Well, one thing I admire about you, Mason, is that you are very good at crossing the aisle, so to speak, and working with people from different backgrounds. The county council in Frederick actually is very functional. They may not make decisions that I agree with all the time, but you cannot take away the fact that it is a operating body among multiple party lines that works effectively. I wish our federal government worked as well as the Frederick County government worked.
I agree. And we have just between me and the other Republican, we think very differently on the issues. We have a lot of differences, a lot of variety in how we look at different issues, and that's the same across the 5 different Democrats. You can pick one Democrat at random and compare it to another Democrat at random, and I'm sure there's a number of philosophical and differences between that. But again, to your point, there are a lot of different boards and governing bodies across the country and across the state that are not functioning whatsoever. I have the distinct privilege and honor of working with a national nonprofit that helps and gives resources to young elected officials and young candidates. And during that time being in that nonprofit, I'm able to network with a lot of other young and Gen Z elected officials. And I hear their stories about how dysfunctional their board is, their county, their state, whatever it may be. And I'm reminded how lucky we are to live in a county where the government does not operate out of spite. It operates based on the feedback, the data, and the goals of the people it represents.
Why is it that you would say separates your body here in Frederick County different from so many other elected bodies?
Mm-hmm. I'll say maybe one of the reasons is, although we've been growing very quickly, we're still little old Frederick, right? We operate differently, we do things differently, and we're better off because of that. We're very lucky to serve with some individuals, at least 2, that have now been through their 3rd term. They've seen the creation, the establishment of our new charter of government. They understand what happens. They've also seen in some years past maybe individuals who took a different route in regards to politics and how they played the game, so to speak. But again, I think that we're just very lucky that we have a group of 7 people who are willing to sit down, discuss, hatch it out, vote, and then move on. That's where we get a lot of some problems when people vote and they refuse to move on and they let that linger, and then they continue to work, speak, and vote out of spite instead of out of the best interest of the people they represent.
And that's how a democracy works. We're a representative democracy in this country, and that's exactly how it is, without holding grudges and doing business that way. And that is pretty much how the Frederick County Council has been operating very, very well.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I have come out on the wrong side of votes more times than probably any other council member.
Mm-hmm.
And yet still we move on. We move forward, work together. We take what we learned, the reasons why people voted no, and we apply that to the next vote.
And one of the other issues, affordability, here in Frederick County, but approximately 1/3 of Frederick County residents are unable to pay their property taxes. Is that a correct number?
That sounds about right. I know that through the United Way's ALICE report, that's Asset Limited Income Constrained Yet Employed, they found that in their survey this year that 33% of people cannot afford the basic cost of living, to include property tax, transportation, healthcare, rent, mortgage, whatever it may be. And so we do have a problem here in the state of Maryland and locally in Frederick County with affordability. And I know I can speak for my generation. The cost of housing is super important right now to people my age looking to get into their first home, but also to our senior population that's looking to get into their last home. There needs to be work done. There's been a lot of conversations. A housing survey study is supposed to drop really soon with some recommendations that we're looking forward to. But it's certainly something that's top of mind.
So, Mason, if some of our viewers want to get behind you or find out more information about you as you run for re-election, how can they do so?
The best stop to go to is on my Facebook. It's Mason Carter for Frederick County on Facebook. Or you can send the campaign an email at Mason, MASON, FOR council, COUNCIL, at gmail.com. Request a sign, request a donation link. You can do that as well. Or ask me about how you can volunteer. Right as this snow is about to melt away, it seems, this month, we're going to be hitting the ground, putting signs out, knocking doors, and getting into the full swing of election season.
So the one other issue that is a very hot topic for residents of Frederick County is that a previous board member resigned. She was a conservative board member. The replacement that was announced by the county executive, Jessica Fitzwater, who you work with, she announced a replacement who is basically as far on the liberal side to replace her. Obviously, someone who is in complete opposition to the voters who voted in Nancy. And what is your take on that kind of situation?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll start by saying that I'm super appreciative of the time and commitment of that Nancy Allen took to serve the people of Frederick County. She did it very greatly. And she did it on a board for 2 years that saw her as the only conservative. And so she had an uphill battle, but yet she went to work every single day for the people who elected her. And so I appreciate that. But yeah, obviously, again, the county executive appointed Mr. Chad Wilson as her replacement, and then it was incumbent on the Frederick County Council to interview them and then vote either in favor or against. I'm voting against this individual, and while he is very much in stark contrast to my beliefs, my reason for voting against him is that he is an active filed candidate for Board of Education. I believe that it is wrong for the county executive to go ahead and appoint somebody who is actively seeking that seat on the Board of Education. And really, it feels like a level of election interference. It's giving an undue advantage to one candidate, and it's making the election wholly unfair, and it's creating an unlevel playing field for the other candidates.
Yeah, to your point, anytime that somebody has filed for candidacy for an elected body to put them in that position prior to the election, you are usurping the democratic process.
Absolutely, and that's why I wrote a letter to the county executive's office a few days after Nancy Allen's resignation, letting her know that I would not be voting for any individual for confirmation if they were a filed candidate. I figured that a number of the filed candidates would apply to fill the vacancy left by Miss Allen, which is the reason why I went ahead and submitted that letter. I felt that it was a much better decision to appoint somebody who was going to vow to serve that remaining 1 year of Miss Allen's term and to move on as not to upset our democratic process. I made multiple notes that it would probably be a good idea to bring on a former Board of Education member to serve out the last year so they can hit the ground running. There's no learning curve, and they can serve out the 1 year with knowledge and experience in years prior, and then let the voters decide who should take that seat.
Do you happen to know what the county executive, Jessica Fitzwater, do you happen to know what her rationale was for appointing this individual?
Well, I believe, and this is not her words, I believe that she is looking to skew the board more left so that they can take on or defeat some of the issues that conservatives are trying to put through the Board of Education. But also, I guess maybe she believes that he's the best person and the most qualified individual, which I disagree with. He wouldn't have been my pick if I was county executive, which I have no intention of ever wanting to be, by the way. But I think that there were better options.
It is also important for people to know that that he is on the actual board of the state teachers union, meaning essentially by definition, but by that alone being on his resume, you can know that kind of those issues that have been in the forefront of the news as to why is academic performance dropping? Why are there mental health issues in our public schools? He is on as far to the left of those issues when it comes to those controversial library books and the teaching of transgenderism to kindergartners all the way through the 6th grade. He is as far to the left of that issue as you possibly can find in the entire state of Maryland. And there is an important distinction there.
And to take it even further, Ethan, not only is he a member or on the board of the Maryland State Education Association, he's also a board member for the National Education Association. So it runs deeper, or maybe it runs further left than just the state of Maryland.
Yes.
Well, it is up to the voters of Frederick County. So the voters of Frederick County need to do their due diligence and research these candidates for school board. And the problem is, and I know I have done it in the past, I did not do enough research and wouldn't vote for people because I didn't know what political party they were. I didn't know what their political aspirations were. But this is a hot button topic for anybody with children in Frederick County. And this next election is going to decide what path we as a county take with our school children. We want to thank you so much for coming on. As a young man representing your generation, you do a great job. I mean, you should be proud of yourself and your accomplishments. And I do wish you the best for your reelection bid.
Mark and Ethan, I really appreciate it.
Well, this has been Mark Flynn with Mid-Maryland Votes, my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we thank you for joining us here with the distinguished guest, County Commissioner Mason Carter. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Mason.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes.
That wraps up our conversation with Mason Carter, District 5 council member and one of the youngest voices shaping policy here in Maryland today. Whether you agree with his ideas or not, conversations like this bring new perspectives to local leadership and show how the next generation is stepping into public service. If you believe real conversations matter, hit like, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. If you love the episode, share it with a friend. If you hated it, share it with an enemy. We're equal opportunity entertainment.